When we think about anesthesia, we often mistake it for sleep. But as any anesthesiologist will tell you, anesthesia is the opposite of sleep. Sleep is a rhythmic, structured dance of brain waves. Anesthesia is a pharmacological shutdown. It frames the human experience as something that can be paused like a movie. The vanishing moment is unique because it lacks a transition. When you fall asleep at night, there's a twilight zone, that heavy-lidded state where thoughts become surreal. But anesthesia? It is a total disappearance. Awareness doesn't dim. It snaps. It leaves no darkness because darkness requires an observer to perceive it. It leaves no passage of time because time is a construct of a functioning mind. While you are under, the world continues. Your family waits in the lobby. The clock on the wall ticks. The sun moves across the sky. But for you, the self has been deleted from the timeline. This teaches us that our presence in the world is a privilege granted by our biology, a signal that can be cut at any moment. Here is where it gets unsettling. While you, the ego, the thinker, the worrier have vanished, your body remains fully, vibrantly alive. This segment reveals the disturbing split between biological function and subjective existence. Under the surgeon's knife, your brain is still firing. Your heart is pumping blood through a complex highway of veins. Your lungs are being commanded to move by a ventilator. The observer has left the building, but the lights are still on in the factory. This creates a profound philosophical crisis. If the body can function without the self, then what exactly is the self? Are we just a software program running on a biological hardware? This split suggests that our identity is not the foundation of our life, but rather a high-level decorative layer, a user interface that the body does not actually need to survive. It is a humbling realization that we are passengers in a vehicle that can keep driving long after we've fallen out the door. We trust anesthesia with our lives every single day. Millions of people undergo it safely. Yet science faces a massive blind spot here. We can map brain activity before the mask goes on. We can see the neurons firing like a chaotic city at night. We can map the brain after the drugs wear off. But the in-between? That subjective void is unmeasurable. Science can tell us the how, the chemicals binding to GABA receptors, but it cannot tell us the where did the person go? There is a gap between the objective data, the EEG readings, and the subjective experience, the nothingness. This exposes the limitations of modern materialism. If we can't measure the absence of a soul, how can we truly understand its presence? This scientific blind spot reminds us that there are still horizons within our own skulls that are more mysterious than the furthest reaches of space. For a long time, we thought anesthesia simply turned off the brain. Recent research suggests something much more fascinating. It doesn't silence the brain, it fragments it. Think of the brain as a massive global airport. Usually, planes, information, are flying between London, New York, Tokyo, and Sydney in a synchronized web. Under anesthesia, the airports are still open, but the communication lines are cut. London can't talk to New York. The prefrontal cortex can't talk to the sensory centers. The unified network required for a sense of self collapses into isolated islands of activity. This tells us that consciousness isn't a thing located in one spot. It is the connection itself. You are not a neuron. You are the conversation between neurons. When the conversation stops, you stop. It is a staggering thought. Your entire identity, your memories of your first kiss, your fear of spiders, your love for your children, can be temporarily deleted by a few milligrams of a chemical. This segment highlights the fragility of identity. It suggests that who we are depends on a very specific, very fragile coordination of neurochemistry. If a simple liquid injected into a vein can make John Smith or Jane Doe cease to exist for 4 hours, is identity really as permanent as we like to think? This raises the unsettling idea that the self is more like a flame than a rock, A rock exists regardless of the weather. A flame requires constant fuel and the right environment. Anesthesia is the wind that blows the flame out, proving that our soul might just be a very delicate chemical balance. This brings us to two competing interpretations that keep neuroscientists and philosophers up at night. Interpretation 1. Consciousness is fully extinguished. When the brain stops integrating, the soul dies and is reborn when the drugs wear off. Interpretation 2. Consciousness persists, but it is hidden. Think of a radio. If you smash the speakers, the music stops playing. Does that mean the radio station stopped broadcasting? Or is the signal still in the air, simply unable to find a device to translate it? This gone or hidden debate touches on the very core of the afterlife and the nature of the mind. If anesthesia just unplugs the speaker, then you might still exist in a form that cannot be accessed or remembered, a signal floating in a void beyond reception. When you wake up from surgery, you don't feel like you've been gone. You don't feel broken. You feel a seamless transition from the 10, 9, 8 to the Mr. Jones, wake up. This is the illusion of continuity. The human mind is a master editor. It hates gaps. Just as your eyes have a literal blind spot that your brain fills in with surrounding colors, your consciousness fills in the anesthetic gap to preserve a smooth narrative of existence. We tell ourselves we are the same person who went under, but anesthesia proves that our narrative self is a construction. We are like a book with 50 pages ripped out in the middle, yet we read it as if the story never skipped a beat. This reveals how much of our reality is just the brain's attempt to make sense of a fragmented experience. In modern neuroscience, consciousness is often described as integrated information. To be aware, you need to combine sight, sound, memory, and emotion into a single package. Under anesthesia, this integration collapses. You might have a sight neuron fire and a memory neuron fire, but they aren't shaking hands. This is life without the eye. It's a state of pure, isolated biological events with no central observer to witness them. This explains why we don't feel anything under anesthesia. Without the web of integration, there is no subject to experience the object. It teaches us that empathy, love, and awareness are all products of togetherness, even at the cellular level. Awareness doesn't fade like a sunset. It flips like a switch. Studies of brain waves under propofol show a sudden phase transition. One moment, the brain is complex and chaotic. The next, it enters a highly predictable, repetitive state of unconsciousness. There is no middle ground. You are either on or off. This binary nature of being is haunting. It suggests that there is a specific threshold, tipping point, where matter becomes mind. It's like water turning into steam. A small change in temperature or dosage leads to a total change in state. This makes us realize how close we always are to the off position. It suggests that the void might not be as empty as we think. It is a state that human cognition literally cannot interpret. In our daily lives, we are obsessed with doing and being. This creates a literal gap in your lived existence. A conscious brain is messy. It has high entropy and complex patterns. An unconscious brain is simple. It's repetitive and predictable. Waking up isn't like turning on a light. It's like a computer booting up. First, the basic BIOS kicks in, breathing, heart rate. Then, the operating system loads, sensation, pain, hearing. Then, the user profile loads. Who am I? Where am I? What year is it? This reconstruction happens in stages, even if it feels instant. Sometimes people wake up and for 5 seconds, they don't know their own name. In that 5-second window, you are a human, but not a person. This proves that identity is the final, most sophisticated program our brain runs. It is the app that makes us who we are, but it's the most prone to crashing. Anesthesia teaches us that the self is not a noun, it is a verb. You aren't a thing that exists. You are a process that is happening. If the self is a process, we have the power to influence that process. Metaphors of tides and music help us cope with the fear of the void. Think of consciousness as music. This segment suggests that our consciousness is stored in the structure of our brain, even when it isn't active. It gives us a sense of security. Though the flame may be extinguished for a moment, the wick remains, ready to be relit. This segment forces us to ask, if you were to die under anesthesia, what would happen to the signal? This is the intersection of medicine and spirituality. This disappearance, without consequence, is a lesson in cosmic humility. It reminds us that while we are the center of our universe, we are not the center of the universe. It reminds us that consciousness is not a right, it's a recurring gift. Every time we wake up, whether from anesthesia or just a Tuesday night sleep, we are being reintegrated into existence. This perspective can transform a mundane morning into a celebration of being. The story of anesthesia shouldn't make us afraid. It should fill us with wonder. Anesthesia is a rehearsal for the ultimate void, and every time we wake up, we prove that the self is a survivor.